Hi, I'm Juan Arteaga and I'm your professor of Philosophy 112, Technology and Modern Life. I'm very excited to teach you this course during the following 3 weeks. Please remember to read the syllabus of the course that is available on Brightspace and take the quiz about the syllabus. The quiz will be available from January 7 until January the 8th at midnight. Now let's go over the first chapter of the book, Introduction to Philosophy of Technology. As you know, in this chapter you'll learn key concepts to think about technology and several definitions of technology. Also, you were introduced to a critique of an instrumental conception of technology. Why to think about technology? It seems that it is not an obvious topic to philosophize about. There is a gap in academia between, on the one hand, humanities and the social sciences, and on the other hand, the exact sciences, engineering, and similar fields, what we call STEM. Technology seems to belong to the latter domain. Moreover, technology is not an obvious topic for anyone to reflect on, not even for philosophers. Usually, we are literally unaware of the technologies we use and indeed of our use of technology. So, for example, at this moment, we are unaware of the computer that you're using to watch this presentation, or even of the building in which you are watching this presentation. You are unaware. These things are invisible to all of you at this moment. Technologies remain invisible, and it seems that this is the way in which we interact with them. In his book Being and Time, Heidegger developed two concepts to analyze this invisible way of being of technology. These concepts, as you know, are ready to hand and present at hand. Being ready to hand means being used in an invisible way and unconscious way. We use technologies in this way without thinking about them. Only when something goes wrong or when we take a theoretical attitude, as we are doing in this lecture, do we become aware of them and they become present at hand as technological artifacts. Only when a machine or infrastructure stops working, we become aware of the technology and our dependence on the technology. Only when the computer you're using to watch this lecture stops working, you become aware of it and how dependent we are of electronic devices. Because technology is usually ready to hand, we are not aware of how dependent we are on it, or how addicted we are to it. Think for a moment how many hours you spend in a day on your phone. Some people even freak out if there is no Wi-Fi connection available, or if the person they just met is not on social media. It seems that if you're not on social media, you're an outcast. For example, I don't have Instagram, and some people find this very strange. Perhaps at this moment you think that this is very strange. This also makes us aware of how dependent we are on an internet connection and on a specific social media, all of which are normally used mindlessly. We use technology but do not stand back and reflect on our use. Now, why is it important to think about technology? If we ignore technology, we do not only ignore material artifacts, we ignore our world. Because we interact with our world and reality through technology. Actually, a lot of our everyday reality is a technological reality. Not to think about technology at all or leave that thinking to scientists and engineers is both ignorant and irresponsible. In Plato's dialogue De Apology, Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." So it is important to examine, to reflect on technology, which is at the center of our modern life. We cannot wait until the climate and the ecosystem have drastically changed before rethinking our relation to nature and the role technology plays in this. We cannot wait until robotics and artificial intelligence are applied and embedded in all aspects of our lives before standing back and questioning if we really want these technologies, and if so, how we want to integrate them into our lives and societies in a meaningful and ethical way. We will focus on these last questions about artificial intelligence at the end of the course. Now, what is philosophy of technology? Philosophy of technology is a disciplined and systematic attempt to think through these kinds of issues, including the question of how we can best understand technology and the challenge to evaluate new technological developments. It is an academic discipline, but it can also take the form of a public philosophy. Public philosophy is to do philosophy with general audiences in a non-academic setting. For example, op-ed articles in newspapers where technological developments are analyzed in a philosophical way. Also, philosophy of technology should take interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary routes if it aims to have an impact on this issue it talks about. This chapter presents an array of definitions of technology. Technology could be artifacts, human-made things which can be material or immaterial, devices, a more or less a smart thing that we use to make life easier for us. Yet often definitions in terms of artifacts or devices hide the infrastructure, hide everything that is needed to make the technology work. Human labor, for example. Since understanding technology as an artifact or a device hides everything that is needed to make the technology work, technology could be defined as a human activity or a skill. For instance, the activity or skill of using, operating, inventing, making, maintaining, and so on. Michel Foucault uses the concept technologies of the self to designate ethical activities of working on oneself and transforming oneself. Technology could also be abolition. For instance, the will to power. This is a concept elaborated by Friedrich Nietzsche. Technology could also be an idea, which can be partly realized or not, such as the idea of the new human, enhanced by technologies, or the idea of the cyborg, a merger between humans and machines. Technology could also be a tool or instrument, and this is a very common definition of technology. Let's analyze in detail this definition of technology as a tool or an instrument. This conception has several shortcomings. When we use such instrumental definitions, we assume that we humans set the goals. The technology is then the means to reach these goals. The instrumental understanding is not wrong because of course technology is also a means, but it is misleading if it suggests that it is a mere means. The means also shape the ends. Technology is not neutral and it is not just a tool. It affects the way in which we interact with the world and how we conceive reality. Let's go over briefly the critique of an instrumental conception of technology. Philosophers of technology argue that technology shapes what we do, what we value, what it means to be human, and more generally, what we think. We're going to study these critiques of technology. We can only ignore this at our peril if we want to gain a critical relation to what we do We should better take technology seriously as a philosophical problem on its own and gain a critical relation to technology. Perhaps it is so difficult to move beyond the instrumentalist understanding of technology because of the language we use. The way we talk about technology, for example, as a tool or as a means, often suggests its instrumentality, already includes it. And there is nothing wrong with using that language, since technology can also be a tool and an instrument. But technology is so much more than a tool. And even if it is a tool, maybe it is precisely as an instrument and a tool that it also influences our thinking. Let's study specifically Heidegger's critique of an instrumental understanding of technology. According to Heidegger, modern technology is not only or not so much about instruments, but rather a way of revealing, a way of perceiving and constructing the world. This clarification of the way of revealing as a way of perceiving the world is very helpful to understand Heidegger's question concerning technology, that you will read in 2 weeks. Heidegger thought that modern technology lets nature appear as a standing reserve that we can use, manipulate, and control. For example, when we use a hydroelectric power plant, nature becomes a reserve of power for our use. Technologies are not only tools or instruments. Technologies are about how we think about and relate to the world, and conversely, how the world appears to us, how we experience the world. The research of the author of the textbook that we are using in this course focuses on the intersection between language and technology. Coeckelbergh starts from the instrumentality of technology to then show that as an instrument, it has these more than instrumental consequences and meanings. He have used Wittgenstein's view of language to argue that technology in use is always embedded in games and a form of life. Wittgenstein explains our uses of language through the concepts of games of language and form of life. And there is nothing wrong with using that language of instrumentality, Kuckelberg says, since technology can also be a tool and an instrument. But technology is so much more than a tool, and even if it is a tool, maybe it is precisely as an instrument and a tool that it also influences our thinking. There are three ideas that I want to emphasize that constitute the guiding vision of the textbook that we're going to use in this course, entitled Introduction to Philosophy or Technology, or by its initials, IPT. First, technology is more than an instrument, that it also changes us and our thinking, and that we should pay more attention to it in order to understand what we are doing and understand ourselves. There is an urgency to think about technology since new technologies are being developed now and may lead to significant and radical transformations of human lives, societies, and of the planet. Thinking about technology can also be philosophically interesting.